Today we are going to wire up a Perski motor and demonstrate how to do it. So to get started, you're going to need an electrical print, some side cutters, a 7mm open end wrench, a 5/16 open end wrench. I use a knife to cut the insulation off the cord. If you need to do that, we got crimps, we got a wire stripper, a Phillips screwdriver, a adjustable open end wrench, and then we have a connector just in case you need one for the cord to go onto your motor, and the motor itself. The last thing you need would be a cord. Inspect the cord that you have on the motor itself that you're replacing, and if it's good, great. If not, go ahead and get a new cord to go with it. It needs to be shielded wire, and the thing you want to inspect is right here at the end where we crimp down with the cord connector. If it's too tight, it'll actually break the wire in that area. So just inspect that area, make sure it feels good, and if it doesn't, please replace it. Okay, to replace a motor or to wire one up, first step is to remove the cover. Take a Phillips screwdriver, unscrew the two screws on top. The cover should come off. This here, it came off together. You just have to pull that off, and it comes with instructions. Now, here's where it gets tricky here. There's connectors here. This is wired for 380 volts, 360 volts. Okay, so that's that. We'll wire it up for that voltage first, and then we'll come back later and we'll demonstrate how to do 230 volts. So what we need to do is we need to take the big cover off here. Just take that off, and then we're going to take our strain relief here, screw it in. Adjustable open end wrench. Tighten it up. Okay. And then now we can put our cord in here. As I said before, inspect your cord right in this area here, because if it's tight or if it looks really crushed, I would replace this section of the cord. And if the cord's too short, you're going to have to replace the whole cord. Just remember, use shielded cable. And then once you what I generally do is I'll crimp this ahead of time before I put it in. So you need 4 eye crimps. This is 18 gauge wire here. We'll just put one at I just put one at a time in. Bring it in, and I generally bring the insulation in until it shows just right there, and then I'll tighten it down, hand tight. And then what I'll do is I'll take a wrench and I'll go about another quarter turn, and that's all you want to do, because if you go much more than that, you're going to crush the wires in here and you'll damage them. The next thing I do is this is where the ground is right here. Take a 5/16 open end wrench, loosen this up. And what I'll do is bring my ground wire, the green and the yellow, and I'll fold it back in here. I'll show you here in a minute if my hands are in the way. And then tighten that up. And these are brass screws, so you don't, just make sure they're tight, but don't over tighten them, because you can strip out the nut. Okay, so that's in there tight, and I have it kind of tucked up here. And what I'll do is I'll move this around like this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this down in here. And actually, what you could do first is you could take these off here, and that you're going to need a 7mm for that. Take these off. This might be easier for you. You can use a nut driver too if you prefer a nut driver. And I always take one washer off. And now I'll put this on here. And actually you could do it this way too. I can show you this way. Now these wires are numbered. There's a number on each one of these wires here. This one here is number 1. You can't, it's hard to read on these wires. I don't know why, but this is 2 and this is 3. So we're going to, here's 2. So I'll put 2 on, put a washer on, and put a nut on. Oh, that one came off. That was loose. We'll check all these after we're done here. And then there's 3. Put my wrench down. That's 1. All right, now we got that. Now this is the crucial point here. You got to get this down in here, and you want to make sure when you tighten these up that none of these are touching each other. Otherwise you can have a direct short here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this one back a little bit. So get my wrench here. Okay, that one's in. I'm going to slide 2 back a little bit. Tighten it up. Number 1. And if you look underneath this, what I'm doing here, I should explain this too, is I always put 1 to T1, 2 to T2, and 3 to T3. And if you're coming in and you're pulling some wires out, you may want to take a picture of how this is run before you get there, because just make sure the jumpers are the same way on the old one as it is with the new one. Okay, and then we're going to tuck these wires in. Down in there like that. And then we're going to take our cover, and wait a minute, this isn't going to work here. I have a screw down in here, it has to go in here. Let me back up here. Put this way. There we go. So now we're going to put the cover on. The wires are out of the way, you can see the holes there and there. So push this down, make sure the wires aren't around any of the edges here. You have to play with this a little bit. You just have to make sure they're straight up down. You just start turning it, you'll feel it click and go. It's tight. Tighten the second screw up. Okay, so now you have a motor wired for 380 volts. What the recommendation would be at this point is go ahead and turn the motor on, check the rotation. If the rotation's backwards, then we got to reverse 2 of the wires. Okay, now we're going to wire this motor for 220 volts. I already took the cover off, unwired it and everything, but when you get a new motor, they're always wired like this. This is 380 volts. The jumpers are straight across here. What we want these jumpers to do is go from T3 to T5, T2 to T4, and T1 to T6. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a 7mm wrench, loosen all your nuts, and then we're going to take all these nuts off. So we'll put the wrench down, we'll take these off, and what you'll see is there underneath one of these there's 2 jumpers, and on the other one there's only 1 jumper. So there's total 3 jumpers on this one side that are all jumped together. Okay, so now what we're going to do, once we get all these off, I took one too many washers off on this one, is we're going to remove these jumpers. They just come straight off. There's two, and here's the third one, okay? So we're just going to go this way. We're going to go like that. We're going to go like this, and we're going to go like this. That just changed it to from 380 to 220, okay? So we're going to put a washer and a nut back on each one of these. Okay. Once I get them like this, I like to tighten down the one side. So we'll tighten this one down. And with brass, you don't need to tighten it up too tight, just a little bit past snug. Otherwise, brass is a soft material and you can strip it out or break the studs. Okay. So now we're ready for the wire to come on. Again, make sure your ground is on there and tight. Pull this out. We're going to put this on here like this, and you'll feel it. It'll click in. It has a spot where it clicks in. And then these wires are numbered 1, 2, and 3. Okay, it's on the wire itself. So I'm going to go ahead and hook them up. This is 3. I'll tuck this over here out of the way. So we're going to put 3 on there. Put a washer on there. And a nut. You know what? I'm going to do this a little different. You can do it this. It's T2, 2 to T2. Three to T3. And I just put them on there loose right now. We're going to move them around here in a minute. And there's number 1. Okay, there's a little hole here and here for the screws for the cover to come down, so we got to make sure we clear those. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to move this one around this way. And you can bend these up a little bit. As long as it's touching the same one, you're okay. And I don't have a nut driver, otherwise I'd use a nut driver, but we can tighten this up. Alright, that one's on. This one here, I always move this way here. We'll tighten this one up. And then this one here will go this way. These are all tight. I always like to double check. Okay, they're tight. Then we're going to drop this down on here and it'll click, okay? You'll feel it click and it'll lock in. And then what you want to do is bring this one around. And then we'll drop this one this way and this one this way. And then what we'll do is we'll take our cover, come on here and go like this. And then you just drop your screw down till you get there and you just start turning it and you'll feel it. This one here. There it goes. Tighten up the cover. So we just wired this one for 220 volts. At this point, what we do is we turn on the motor, check the rotation, make sure it's turning the right way. And if it's not turning the right way, we got to swap two of the, like number 2 and number 3 wires, or number 2 and number 1, or 1 and 3. You just have to swap 2 wires, and then the rotation should change and you should be good to go.